Thank you for taking the time to watch this video today in regards to the Budget Process Explained, Part 2, in regards to the 2022-2023 Wappingers Central School District budget. I'd like to recognize members of the Board of Education, President John Lumia, Vice President Peggy Kelland, Carrie Cahill, Trustee, Keith Odoms, Trustee, Marie Johnson, Trustee, Eddie Sloshower, Trustee, Michael McFarland, Trustee, James Spencer, Trustee, and John Morgan, Trustee. Also members of the senior staff administration of the school district, Darren Lokema, Assistant Superintendent for Compliance and Information Systems, Dr. Michelle Cardwell, Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, Kristen Crandall, Assistant Superintendent for Finance and Business Development, Richard Zipp, Assistant Superintendent for Student Support Services and Accessible Education, Renee Harris, Director of Human Resources, Ronald Browitz, Director of Facilities and Operations, and Alberta Pedro, District Clerk and the Secretary to the Superintendent. So what is a school district budget? School district budget provides for the educational needs of students while maintaining compliance with New York State. It is the annual spending budget for the district. It's an aggregate view of all of the financial numbers that drive the district's operations for the following year. It's created in alignment with Board of Education annual goals, district administration annual goals, as well as much needed input from the Wappingers Central School District learning community. It's more than a collection of numbers. It's a reflection of the mission and vision, the core values of the Wappingers Central School District learning community. The annual budget is based on recommendations, as I stated, from building administration, offices, Board of Education, district office senior staff, as well as the community. And the Board of Education adopts a budget in April. This year, it needs to adopt a budget by April 19th. And it's put forward to the voters this year on the third Tuesday in May, which will be May 17th. Let's talk a little bit about a property tax cap. What is a property tax cap? In June of 2011, New York State officials enacted a law that limited the increase of property taxes for municipalities and school districts. The first year the tax cap legislation was enforced for school districts was in 2012-2013. While it's often labeled a 2% tax cap, it's misleading as the law does not limit a property tax increase to 2%. The law does require for 60% voter approval if the proposed levy exceeds a specific amount. That specific amount is referred to as the tax levy limit in the calculation. Property tax cap calculation made up of 8 steps which determine the allowable tax levy. Starting with the prior year tax levy is the first step. Then there are application of factors for growth and the consumer price index. Then there is the addition and the subtraction of current and prior year items such as pilot projects or payments in lieu of taxes. Then the inclusion of items that are calculated in accordance with the legislation such as capital tax levy and New York State retirement system adjustments. So let's share some frequently asked questions and I will provide some answers to them. Does the tax cap law mean that school tax levies can't increase by more than 2%? To put it simply, the answer to that is no. Each district prepares their own tax levy calculation that consists of the 8 factors that were just mentioned. The 2% factor is only one of the 8 factors to consider in this calculation. What is the tax levy limit? Tax levy limit is the highest allowable tax levy before exclusions that a school district can propose as part of its annual budget. That requires 50% approval by the taxpayers. The law does allow for some exceptions or exclusions, such as some pension costs and capital expenses. Third question, what does the property tax law mean for your tax bill? This law does not limit property tax rate increases to 2% or any other value. This law changed the parameters of what voter support is needed to pass a budget. Next question, are district capital expenses for BOCES projects under the tax cap? The answer to that, no. All school aid awarded to the state's 691 school districts, it's determined annually by an act of the state legislature through the state budget process. States' funds come from two principal sources. Number one, the general fund accounts, 88%, lottery funds, 12%. Superintendent generally submits claims for aid to the Office of Management Services at the New York State Education Department. So, New York State aid. What types of aid do we have from New York State? We have foundation aid, we have full-day kindergarten conversion aid, universal pre-kindergarten, BOCES, high-cost excess cost aid, and private excess cost aid. Also, hardware and technology, software, library, textbook, transportation, and building aid. In the area of hardware, technology, software, library, textbook, transportation aid, and building aid, that calculation is driven by the school district expenses, where the initial foundation aid, full-day kindergarten conversion aid, universal pre-kindergarten, BOCES, high-cost excess cost aid, and private excess cost aid is driven by New York State formulas and data on enrollment. Reimbursable aids. Textbook aid, up to $58.25 reimbursement per student, based on prior year applicable expenses. Definition of textbooks. Aidable. Hard-covered books, courseware or electronic-based instructional materials, novels used to support the textbook. Non-aidable. Encyclopedias, newspapers, magazines, periodicals, generic computer software, etc. Instructional computer hardware and equipment aid. The lesser of prior year expenditures, or $24.20 reimbursement per student, times the resident average daily attendance aid ratio. Expenses eligible for aid are those used in serving the computer-based needs of our instructional program, and in instances where hardware serves as both instructional and non-instructional, only the instructional portion can be claimed for aid purposes. Computer software, up to $14.98 reimbursement per student based on prior year expenses. Expenses must meet eligibility requirements for computer software aid. What's aidable? Purchase price of educational program software, annual licensing for software purchases. What's not aidable? Lease expenses for educational program software. Library materials aid, up to $6.25 of reimbursement per student based on prior year expenses. Expenses must meet eligibility requirements for library materials aid. What's aidable? Materials that are cataloged for inclusion in the school library media center, materials with a useful life of over 1 year, materials that are not eligible for textbook aid or computer software aid. What's not aidable? Online databases, not aidable. 2022-2023 revenue sources, in addition to the state aid that I just explained. We have pilot, payment in lieu of taxes. We have interest earnings, continuing education, tuition for foster care, health services billing, insurance recoveries, gifts and donations, and other miscellaneous items. So what is our revenue by source? For 21-22, we had just over a $256 million budget. 70.8% of that budget came through the tax levy. 26.94% was New York State aid. Other revenue was 1.51, and 1.46 came from the district fund balance. Upcoming dates to be aware of. Another presentation will be done in Spanish. That will be presented on February the 28th. The budget vote, obviously, May 17th of 2022. And if you're interested in learning more about the budget process, All community members are invited to learn how we gather information to develop the annual budget, use estimates in the budget, and arrive at the final budget number that is proposed to the voters. A recording will be made of this presentation. It will be posted to the WCSD website as well. And I would ask you to please let us know your thoughts. What do you believe is critical and important to provide the necessary programs and services that our students deserve? You can do that through our budget email. And again, I look forward to hearing your thoughts regarding the 2022-2023 budget, as we must connect with our community to provide the necessary resources for our students. With that, I thank you.